Alrighty, this is part 4 of gold nuggets and your detector. I've touched on getting to know your detector, some settings and whatnot, mostly related to gold nugget hunting. But I'm going to add this here. The guys at Coin and Relic Hunt have to learn a lot more on their detectors than us guys at Gold Nugget Hunt, as a rule. Most gold nugget detectors are designed for one thing, and that's gold nugget hunting. And therefore we don't have to learn different tones. We don't have to learn different numbers for ID. We don't have to worry about setting the discrimination. We dig all targets. All of them. Okay, so that being said, there's no reason as a nugget hunter, in my opinion, this is just me now, but in my opinion, there's really no reason for me to learn the different tones that could or couldn't be gold. I mean, it can be fun for puttering around and trying to guess what you're digging before you dig it up. But the reality of it is, folks, if you want to find gold nuggets, you have to dig all targets. All targets. You can't pick and choose. And on a couple of my videos, I've showed using discrimination a little bit on the Equinox 800 as well as the Gold Monster under certain conditions. But 85% of the time I dig every single target that I hear. And the reason for that is I've been fooled several times by detectors. You get a signal, you think for sure it's going to be a piece of lead or a gold nugget or even a piece of trash. And it comes up totally opposite of what you thought it was. And I've also gone behind people that walked away from a target and dug that target up and found out it was a gold nugget. And like I said, our machines for gold nugget hunting are pretty basic. We've got sensitivity, we've got your volume, and we ground balance. We have a threshold on most machines. And there's some other settings on some of the higher end units that I won't really go into because you're not going to be using those settings yet, or maybe I'll go into that at a later date. But pulse induction have their own set of settings, and you can change the timings on the machine, which allow for you to do different things in different soils. So the higher end you go and the better pulse induction unit you buy, the more options you have to work the ground. Simple. Okay? But we dig all targets. The discrimination on a Coin Relic machine is very detailed, very good, and takes some learning. And there's guys good enough out there, I am blown away watching their videos on YouTube, that how well they can identify targets before they dig them. But if you notice too, when these guys are out hunting for hammies, as they call them, and some of the really old historical stuff, relics, they dig all targets. A lot of relics are iron. And I've dug some cool relics in the gold fields. But you can't pick and choose when you're gold hunting, my friends. When I cherry pick with the discrimination on, I'm still actually looking at the targets or digging probably 99% of them. I just like to have an idea of what's down there, and I like to have the option of listening to a target that's a bad target and knowing it's going to be a hot rock or something, and it helps when I kick it off the surface. Now this is only with the Gold Monster. It's the first machine I've had that I actually find the discrimination somewhat useful on, that's a actual gold nugget machine. On pulse induction machines and most of the other VLF gold nugget machines, discrimination is no more than just a break in the threshold when you go over the target, to tell you that it's not a solid target, and the machine thinks it's ferrous. That's what I mean by not a solid target. Okay, lead, brass, all that stuff will give you a nice solid hit. No break in the threshold. And therefore we dig all targets. And you'll notice on that type of discrimination, even on the Gold Monster, and even on some of the Coin Relic machines, I'm sure you guys have noticed that when you dig down, that signal changes occasionally. You may move off a layer of mineralized soil. You may move off some iron that was in the way. You may move a hot rock that was next to the nugget you're about to dig or the coin. And therefore that signal changes, and you look at it and you go, man, if I'd have walked away from that, I would have missed this. I don't walk away. Okay, I just don't. I dig all targets. If I don't dig them, I identify them. hot rocks most times are on the surface. You can look down and go, yep, it's a hot rock, kick it out of the way. And once you're in a particular area, the hot rocks are pretty consistent. And you can identify them by just looking at them and getting them out of the way. Checking the ground where they were, because I have found nuggets underneath hot rocks. They'll give kind of a funny signal. And it's actually 2 signals you're hearing with the machine. It's probably the best advice I give, especially to newbies. And I see guys here and there mentioning that they've learned to identify the gold tone and that's all they dig and la-di-da. Well, that's all well and good, guys, but you know what? You're missing gold. Simple. Because I'll dig it. You get in an area that I've hunted and I've found gold nuggets before, a patch area or a wash, and you get in there after I've been in there working it heavily for a period of time, you're going to have a tough time finding even a target. And I go through and dig everything. And not only are all those targets that are trash just trash, they can tell you something. Whether a miner's been there. I think I mentioned in one of my other videos that those little tacks that everybody looks at with the big round head out in the gold fields, they're about, I guess they're about a 1/4 inch long. Some are a 1/2 inch long. And people call them shoe tacks. Well, let me tell you, if you have those big round things at the bottom of your boot heels and you're walking on smooth ground or concrete or something, you're going to fall right on your butt or on rocks. Those weren't boot tacks, my friends. Those are furniture tacks. And they used them for a lot of reasons. They used them to hold tent, canvas, 2 poles and whatnot. But one of the main uses was to hold the bellows on the dry washer, which was made of oilskin or some sort of other material. And it would puff up and down, move in the dirt. But as it puffed up and down, the stress on the cloth itself would actually fling some of those little nails out here and there. And at the end of the day, they'd replace the nails and go back at it the next day. And I've also found spots where there's been bicycle parts. Oddball stuff out in the desert. You think, what the heck is this even doing out here? And it was a makeshift dry washer. These guys used to use whatever they could, and leather strapping, whatever they could come up with back in the early days to build those dry washers. So they would have a hand crank, a big pulley, a smaller pulley, some sort of a belt, and that would turn around, and there was a cam set up that would bump up and down and push that bellows. And by being able to identify this stuff, you can tell if an area you're at has been mined before, or at least sampled. And bottles, cans, tobacco cans. It's amazing what these guys left out in the field. They didn't have anybody to pick their garbage up, and there weren't any laws saying you couldn't litter, and most of them just didn't even care. They just threw their crap on the ground and moved on. So you can use all these things to identify. But if you don't dig all targets, you're not going to have these little clues, are you? All right? And this is a short one because, like I said, if I go too long on these things, nobody will listen to it to the end. But friends, dig all targets if you want to be a successful nugget hunter. Period. We don't have the option of seeing what it is before we pull it out of the ground. All that detector is trying to do is give you its best guess. Some of the newer machines, VLFs out there, have a VDI meter, like the Gold Bug Pro. Some of the whites, I believe the Garrett machine does, but you don't see it on their pulse induction. The AT Pro, for instance, there's nothing on there that tells you what you're digging or what it thinks you're digging. You dig all targets with that machine. And that's another one where I've heard people say, well, I can guess the tone on that, and I just walk away from the ones I don't think are gold. Well, my friends, a lot of those that you don't think are gold are. For instance, a very deep, big gold target sometimes is going to give you no more than a disturbance on your threshold. Something that just doesn't sound right in that ground. And if you walk away from that, the next guy by there is going to dig it. And he's going to be showing off that big nugget that you walked away from. So I guess the name of this little section is simply dig all targets. Don't discriminate when you're gold hunting. It's fine for coin and relic hunting, and there are very good reasons to do so in that end of our hobby. And some places you just have to, or some places you're looking for a specific object, a specific type of coin, and you can focus your detector to find that. We don't have that option. Gold comes in all different shapes and sizes, different alloys, in rock, out of rock, and big, small, funny shaped, crystalline, you name it. It comes in all shapes and sizes. And all those shapes and sizes can sound a little bit different. And I've been fooled many a time. Because like I said, I like to play the guessing game and say, yeah, what am I digging here? I think this is a bullet, or I think this is a BB. I think this is a little piece of shrapnel, lead, can slaw, whatever it may be. I try to guess, but I dig all targets. And always check your hole a second time, especially you guys that are new at this. A little story. I was up at Rich Hill years ago, and I went over a big hole. I mean, this guy had a hole about this big around and probably, I don't know, 2 feet deep. And there's a big nail laying on the side of the hole. You see, he pulled it out of the hole. And I picked the nail up and threw it in my pouch because I haul all the trash out. I'm just that way. And I stuck my coil down in the hole. And there was a target about halfway down that hole in the side. And I was with a friend Lou at the time. And I said, hey, there's another target in this hole. He goes, you're kidding. I said, no. I said, because I'd already showed him the nail. And I looked down into the hole and got ready to get my pick and dig a little bit, and I didn't have to. There was a nugget sticking out of the side of that hole. And it was sticking out probably a 1/4 inch, just shining in the sun, about 1 foot down in that hole. All right? I just reached down and plucked it. About a 1/2 ounce. If that feller would have stuck his coil back in that hole after he dug that nail, he would have found out there was still a target in there, and that would have been his nugget. That would have been his nugget. Okay? So, I hope this helps a little bit, because I'm not joking here, folks. I dig everything. Everything that is an actual target. I'm a little lenient on hot rocks, and I'll just kick them out of the way. But like I said, I've done this long enough, I can identify most of them that are going to be hot in a particular area. But I dig all metal targets, and I find a lot of gold. They go hand in hand. And for now, Nugget shooter out.